So we are presenting the Obergefell versus Hodges case. To start, the two parties involved were James Obergefell and Richard Hodges. Obergefell was the plaintiff arguing for the 16 same-sex couples, including him and his partner John Arthur, who sued the states of Ohio, Michigan, Tennessee, and Kentucky for denying them the right to legally get married. And Richard Hodges was the defendant in the case. The case was argued on April 28th, 2015, and the decision was made on June 26th, 2015. The case was held at the United States District Court for the Southern District of Ohio, and the constitutional issue involved was the state's bans on same-sex marriage violated the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment. This clause, found in Section 1 of the 14th Amendment, guarantees the right to marry as one of the fundamental liberties it protects, and that analysis applies to same-sex couples in the same manner as it does to opposite-sex couples. The states denied same-sex couples the right to marry, as well as having their marriages lawfully performed in another state.
There were multiple major events leading up to the Obergefell versus Hodges case, spanning all the way back to the 1969 Stonewall riots where members of the LGBTQ community protested following the unjust raids of gay bars during the 1960s, resulting in increased awareness for LGBTQ rights. In 1971, there was the Baker versus Nelson case, which was brought to the Supreme Court by Baker and his partner who wanted to get a marriage license, but were rejected for being homosexual. This case was monumental as it led to the blocking of federal courts from ruling on same-sex marriage for nearly 45 years. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, states such as California, DC, and Hawaii made steps towards making gay marriage legal through ordinances allowing homosexuals to register as domestic partners and finding violations of rights in the Constitution. However, this progress was halted by former President Bill Clinton in 1996 through the Defense of Marriage Act, which stated that only heterosexual couples could be granted federal marriage licenses and benefits. In 2003, Massachusetts became the first state to legalize gay marriage. After that, conservative states such as Oregon, Kansas, and Texas said it was unconstitutional for homosexuals to get married. This pattern of banning gay marriage continued until the 2010 United States versus Windsor case, which found DOMA to be unconstitutional, leading to former President Barack Obama to stop defending DOMA and thus the Obergefell versus Hodges case to begin. Lack of marriage rights for the LGBTQ community was one of the major causes of depression and anxiety for the community, so suicide attempts were extremely common, with over 2 in 7 LGBTQ youth making attempts on their own life before the Obergefell versus Hodges case. As you can see within the chart to the left, suicide rates of the LGBTQ community decreased to less than 1 in 4 after the case, which was about a 16% decrease. On the chart to the right, you can see that the support for gay marriage has increased over the span of almost 20 years, and there are now more people that support gay marriage than oppose it, meaning that the ruling of Obergefell versus Hodges, which will be discussed in the later slides, was very much in favor of public opinion.
So the court's decision was 5-4, and the majority won. So that basically legalized gay marriage on a federal level and made it so that same-sex marriages are to be performed and recognized as a legitimate marriage in all states. And something to note with this is that while they did win, it was only with a small majority. So it just goes to show how while while gay marriage became legalized, there's still a long way to go with LGBTQ plus rights because it's still not as accepted as some people think that it should be. So the court's reasoning for this is that before, the act of marriage was defined as only a union between a man and a woman. And the court deemed this as unconstitutional under the due process of the Fifth Amendment, where it states that no one shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of the law from the federal government. So this basically says that it's not right to recognize same-sex marriages in some states and not in others. And was this the correct decision? It was the correct decision because before, same-sex marriages were not recognized in all states. while straight marriages were. It did not matter what state you went to. If you were in a straight heterosexual marriage, then it was accepted and recognized. And this created an inequality between gay and straight relationships. So this really made these relationships on a more equal level.
So for the short-term impacts, UCLA did a study that compared the difference in percentages before and after the case. So for an impact on happiness, the members of the LGBTQ plus community, happiness increased, while people who were not a part of the LGBTQ plus community, happiness did not change. And this can be seen. The blue line represents those who are part of the LGBTQ plus community, while the orange line represents adults who are not a part of the LGBTQ plus community. And as you can see from the change from before to after, the blue line significantly increased while the orange line stayed consistent. Long-term impact was the impact on life satisfaction, and this was the same way, the different percentages before and after the case. So for those who were a part of the LGBTQ plus community, they increased, while those who were not a part of the LGBTQ plus community decreased. And this can be seen in, so it's the same thing where the blue line represents those who are a part of the LGBTQ plus community, while the orange line represents those who are not a part of the LGBTQ community. And as you can see, the before and after, the blue line significantly increased while the orange line decreased.